Excellent. Hey, welcome everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special guest. Mr. Harrington just showed up. Give him a big hand. All right, I'll hand the microphone off and Mr. Harrington will explain exactly why you are here today. You're going to laugh, you'll cry, it'll become a part of you. You're going to love it. All right, I'm sorry I was late. I was having to do my attestation to make sure that I was safe to be in here. So awesome. Welcome, sixth graders. I appreciate your time and effort and having your teachers come bring you guys down to the commons. So we are here to learn about a program that starts in 7th grade here at Anacortes Middle School and then also continues through to the high school. And it's called AVID. How many people have heard of AVID? How many have siblings, like a brother or sister that might be an AVID currently? All right, so there's a few people that already have an idea of what AVID is. So we're going to today go through that with your teacher that will be your AVID teacher next year, the counselor that will help you through this program, Mr. Flynn, the counselor, and Mr. Crane, our teacher of AVID. And then you'll also get to hear from some students who have experienced AVID the last 2 years. And they have been in Mr. Crane's class for those 2 years. So we'll go over that. We have a few different slides that will explain what the program looks like. And then at the end, we'll have an opportunity to answer any questions. Who's kicking this off? Here's Mr. Flynn. Taber's on.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Harrington. Okay, guys,
Go ahead.
let's start talking about what makes up this class called AVID. First, there's a mission statement. There is an overall goal for this program to reach with every student that joins. It's to close an achievement gap by preparing all students for college readiness and success in a global society. So AVID's mission is to prepare students for whatever education they want post-secondary, meaning after high school. Whether it's college or a technical program, AVID wants to set you up for success. It stands for, so it's an acronym, AVID, it stands for Advancement Via Individual Determination. And that individual determination, that is really important to understand and sort of identify within yourself if it's something you have for this program. It teaches skills and behaviors for academic success. So you're going to learn how to essentially become a better student. You're going to learn the skills that are needed to succeed academically. It's going to hold you accountable to the highest standard. But it's also going to provide you that academic and social support. So it's going to raise the bar for you, hold you accountable, but you will have the support. It's going to give you a boost, but you'll get what you need to reach your goals. It creates positive peer groups. So you will be with an AVID class if you join in the 7th grade. That group remains together year after year, all the way through high school, through 12th grade. It motivates students to reach higher with goal setting and celebrating achievements. So every year you'll work with your AVID teacher to create goals for yourself. And there is a hand up, yes?
So before this, do we leave our actual classes like an extra?
Yeah, great question. And we'll talk about how AVID works with your schedule and anything related to that a little bit later. Yeah, so awesome question, thank you. Okay. All right, so we talked a little bit about what AVID is. Let's talk about what it's not. It's not a remediation class. So this is not a class designed if a student is really struggling in a particular subject. So if I'm really struggling in math, haven't been doing well, I'm either getting a D or maybe an F, I should join AVID. No, it is not designed to provide remediation for a certain subject. You'll get support in all of your classes, but it is not set up for students that are failing subjects. It's certainly not an easy elective or a study hall. And it's not a guarantee that you're going to pass every class. This is where the individual determination comes back. you will have to do the work. It's not a place for students who do not want to be college career ready. So remember, the mission of AVID is to prepare you guys for success post-secondary, after high school, going on to higher education. If you do not yet see yourself going to college or just don't have a desire yet, that's fine. You guys are sixth graders. It's all good. You don't have to commit to college necessarily, but we want you to start thinking about it. We want you to start creating goals for yourself. And if you see yourself wanting to go to college one day or a higher education after high school, AVID could be a great fit for you. We do not put any students into AVID just to fill your schedule. This is not a random selection. There's an application process. Students are specifically chosen for the class. I'll talk more about the application later. And it's not a solution to poor student behavior choices. So we are looking for students who have already, as sixth graders, demonstrated a willingness to learn, a desire to do well in class academically and behaviorally. So we do not look to accept students who have made bad choices in the behavior department. Okay, so as you've been listening to this, I hope you're starting to ask yourself, I wonder if this is for me. This sounds kind of interesting. Here's a breakdown of really what kind of student we're looking for. Students with academic potential. So students that have, in some ways, demonstrated this year. Now we get it, this year has been funky, right? Kind of crazy. But through this, we hope that you've figured out, or starting to figure out, what kind of student you are. And maybe you're starting to push yourself in ways that you didn't even know that you could push yourself. There's potential there. You're seeing it in yourself, and your teachers have been able to see it as well. Average to high test scores, somewhere in the academic middle. So you've been earning like B's, C's, maybe a D or two, somewhere in that middle. So not on the kind of highest end, all A's, and certainly not on the lowest end, all F's. College potential with support. So you could potentially be the first person in your family to go to college. AVID, like we talked about earlier, is really gearing you toward being successful for college. And it could be possible that you are the first in your family to do so. We want to encourage that. And the willingness to work hard, right? So this is what I was saying about the determination piece. You got to have it. You got to have it already. We're not going to create it for you. This is the drive that you're going to have in yourself, and we're just going to help that grow. All right, and if Mr. Harrington is still here, this is his absolutely favorite slide, but I think Mr. Crane and I are gonna push forward without him.
I can do it. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Before Mr. Harrington talks about this slide, which is by far his favorite, and it's really great. Two things. One, Mr. Flynn said there's kind of the what AVID is, what AVID is not, and all those things are absolutely true, but there's not like one AVID kid. We can have kids whose family members have gone to college, kids who haven't. So part of that application will say, has anybody in your family gone to college? You don't need to feel like, oh, I don't know the answer to that question, or maybe I should have more family members who've gone to college. That doesn't help you. It just helps us get to know who you are and what your experience or understanding of college is. Because some of you are thinking, college, is that like a collage that I made in the second grade where you cut and paste some pictures and put them together? No, it's different. We're talking about school after high school, and some of you are familiar with that concept. And you'll have a chance to ask questions in a little bit as well. And Matt, can you go back one slide real quick? Thank you. And so average to high test scores, that's good. So that's the potential thing. And then grades. So you don't have to have a 4.0, but like Mr. Flynn said, you shouldn't have, if you're failing all your classes, AVID may not be the tool for you. Is every student a good fit for AVID? No. If you don't get into AVID, does that mean you're not going to be successful? Definitely not. You can all be really successful, regardless of which programs you're in. This is just one opportunity for some of you to say, I want to go to college, and I think AVID can help me get there and help me be really well set up for both academically and then one day scholarships and application process and all that stuff. Okay, with that, Mr. Harrington.
Okay, this buildup has been riveting. This is the most amazing slide that's on this presentation. So, can you go to that slide? So, I got to go to college, and the reason I like this slide is because it talks about our potential. Your earning potential. And I'm not saying that money is going to make everything make you happy. Where your passion is and what you do for a career, that is what's going to make you happy. But you need to also know how to kind of live on your own, because I don't think mom and dad are just going to keep you down in the basement for the rest of your lives. Right, Chance? Right. Okay, so what I like to do with this, I was a former math teacher, and so this brings me an opportunity to talk a little bit about math here. If you take a look at this, why go to college anyway? Well, again, it's that potential of giving yourself the chance to have a free education from K to 12, and then taking that on to college. And through AVID, as Mr. Crane said, there's an opportunity to get scholarships through that process. So if you look at this, if you have less than a 9th grade education, your potential, and this is just averages, your potential is only to make $26,000 a year. How many right now would take $26,000 a year as a kid? Heck yeah, $26,000 as a kid? You guys would have tons of things to do with it, because guess what? Mom and dad are probably paying for most of everything, right? So we're going to take that number, and we'll get back to the other numbers that are up there. So we're going to take that number, and I'm going to make it a little bit easier, and I'm going to make it $24,000. Say it was just a few years ago that this slide was up. Does anybody know what taxes are? Yes. So when you work, you're going to have taxes taken out of your paycheck. And on average, we're just going to say 25%, because that's a good number that goes with 24, right? So if I ask, what is 25% of $24,000? How much is it that this government will take from you? In the back, give me that number. 6,000. Excellent. I'm glad you got that one right. So, your 6th grade math teachers are doing great. All right, so we have $6,000 that the government's going to take that you're not going to get in your paycheck for the year. How much money do we have to spend on living? 18K, $18,000. All right, on average, we're going to say that it's going to cost $1,000 to live in an apartment. That could be pretty cheap. For some, it might be pretty expensive. But if that's the case, how much money am I going to use for a year on my rent? This is just rent. How much is it that we're going to use? $12,000. How much do I have left over to live on for a year now? 6K, $6,000. All right. How many of you at 16 are going to want to drive a car? Looks like all of you. Mrs. Moore is already driving, so she didn't raise her hand. On average, a car is going to probably cost you, if you get a decent car, it's probably going to be a lot more, but maybe $300 a month to pay for that. Maybe $200, $250 to $300. If that was the case, and let's just say it was $250, how much is that, or $200? We'll go with $200 a month. That's kind of low. How much is that a year just for your car payment? Caleb? $2,400? $2,400. I hope it's not $24,000. That'd be a very expensive car. $2,400. So we had $6,000. Now take $2,400 away from that. How much do we have to live on? Say it one more time. 2,600. 3,600. Okay. Now, how many of you have cell phones currently? How many of you are going to have that as an adult? Okay, so that's probably another $200 a month. So another $2,400 a year, right? Now how much do I have to live on? So if we had, how much was it? We had 3,600, we take 2,400, we have 1,200, okay? We have to pay for insurance, and for my insurance for 2 cars, it's almost $100 a month. For your age, it's probably going to be around that to run that car and to put gas into it. So right now, if you had your job, you are going to work in your new car with insurance, but naked. Did you know that? Because you haven't been able to go buy any clothes and you have no more money.
Wait, what are you? What about the clothes you took from your parents' house?
There you go. So you're now no money, you have your car, you have your house, but you can't wear any clothes
Just live in your car.
because we've used it all. Now, we haven't even discussed what you've had to eat. We haven't discussed any miscellaneous like going on vacation.
What about water?
Just a second, I don't need your comments. Here's the thing about this, is that if your potential with a grade, if you only get to 9th grade, you only have that potential. Let's look down at 12th grade. You have $30,000, which is a little bit more, but we're still not gonna make, you might be on vacation in your back car, but you'll probably be naked still. Hopefully not. Look at the potential as it goes down. Just making it through high school, you have that potential of making more money. And as you continue to go down with a bachelor's degree, if you go for associate's or a bachelor's degree, you have that potential. That's why it's important that we're talking about being college ready and career ready. So it's important that you take a look at this as you work down. If you have a master's degree, $108,000 a year. If you make it all the way down to a doctorate like our superintendent has, he has the potential of making $140,000 a year. Okay, so those are important things to think about when we talk about AVID program and what your potential is. All right, Mr. Crane, you're up next.
All right. Everybody say thank you, Mr. Harrington. So good. What Mr. Harrington is talking about, obviously that's the financial part of it, right? So more education, more money, that's generally a good thing, or at least the option of more money. What I tell my AVID students is that the more education you have, typically the more choice you have. Now you might go and get a bachelor's degree, go to college, then go to get a master's degree, get a doctorate and all those things, but you say, you know what, Mr. Crane, I realize that after all that education, I want to have an entry-level job and make a minimum wage. And you can do that. You have that choice to do that. Now, most people would say, well, that seems like a lot of work for not reaping the benefit, and that's okay. But at least one day you might say, okay, I'm kind of tired of this minimum wage job, and now you have the option to pursue a higher level career and make more money or have more choice or more decisions about the kind of work you want to do. And that's what education can provide you guys. The more education you have, the better you do academically, the more choice you have. And that's a good thing. So because you might want to change your mind one day. Because the other person that says, I'm going right into that entry-level job, and that's where I'm going to be, and they didn't get that education, well, they don't have the option to move on necessarily without pursuing that one day. So keep that in mind. More education, whether you're an AVID or not, is a good thing, generally. Tabor? So it says, what is AVID like? Somebody asked earlier, well, is AVID is this like an extracurricular thing or a club? No, AVID is an elective class, happens during the day. These AVID students right over here have my class during second period, and there's both a 7th and an 8th grade AVID class. And this class continues. If you stick with the program and you hold up your end of the bargain and all that, then you can take AVID and be an AVID student all the way through high school, 7th through 12th grade. Now that's not a guarantee, but on both the student or the program, and I'll explain that later, but that's a really good thing, and the longer you stick with that, you'll see a lot of benefits and rewards both in your regular school day, in your academic progress, and also your potential to attend college one day. So on a typical week, this is what AVID kind of looks like. 2 days a week, again, we're in kind of a goofy time, like Mr. Flynn said, with our last year and a half. But on a normal year, likely next year, Mondays and Wednesdays will be what we call AVID curriculum. This is like what I mentioned earlier, learning how to kind of play the game of school, to be a good student, to learn what does it take to do really well academically. So that not only will I graduate high school, which is great, it's good to graduate high school, but I'll be someone who's likely to go to college. You can graduate high school, if you didn't know this, and not necessarily be well equipped to go to college or have the kind of grades that would get you into college. And so we're going to help kind of cast that vision for you. And that could be focusing on a specific subject, like math and English or writing, and kind of diving deeper into that. That could be doing something like we did recently. We did a 5-year plan, so charting all of the classes that these students are going to take from now until they graduate high school. Raise your hand if you just recently registered for your elective classes for next year. Ooh, good job, Mr. Flynn's watching. For those hands that aren't up, he's got to get after you. Make sure you register for those classes. Well, these students have figured that out all the way through their senior year, 12th grade, and they know all the classes they plan to take, so that when they get to that point, there's no question they're going to meet all the requirements to both graduate and go to college. And that's a cool thing. We just started an SAT unit, so we're looking at standardized tests, and like, oh man, that doesn't sound like a lot of fun. But the SAT or the ACT, those are questions, or those are tests that have questions that assess your ability to think on a college level, and that's a standardized test that is really commonly accepted expected from a lot of colleges that you would take. And if you do well on it, you're more likely to get into college or maybe even receive scholarships for good scores. And so we're going to learn about that test and become really familiar with it. So when these students take the test in real life, when they're a junior in high school, they can do really well on it. So that's kind of the AVID curriculum Monday, Wednesday. Tuesdays and Thursdays, we have things called tutorials, and you'll see a slide about that in just a minute. And these students might even talk about that. And we have adults come in, that kind of thing. And then Fridays are where we do things that are maybe a little different, like binder evaluations. Being really organized is a big part of the AVID program, both organizing your materials, filling your planner out every day, knowing what's coming next, paying attention to the calendar. All those things are really important. Field trips. On a normal year, we would take field trips, both enrichment field trips, you'll see a slide about that in a minute, and to area colleges as well. So you do college campus tours. We'll hear from guest speakers, do some motivational kind of leadership group building activities and stuff like that. So that's kind of a general week in the AVID program, Madison. Tutorials, what you see up here is kind of, if you can see those images, right over here is one of our Anacortes High School students on the far right, and she's presenting a question. So she was sitting maybe in math class, or English, or social studies, or science, and something occurred to her that, you know what, I'm not sure I quite caught that concept the first time around. I think I want to dive a little deeper into that. Or, I feel really caught up and I want to go to the next level. I want to look ahead at the next chapter and a little bit more on a higher level, so that I'm ready when we get there in this class. Well, she can bring a higher level question to AVID. She's going to present that in front of a small group of students, of her peers. There's going to be an adult sitting there with them to help facilitate the conversation. And she's just going to explain the question, what her point of confusion was, and then the group will help walk her through that by asking some leading questions, and it's really modeled on a college study group. So it's a great process, and you see some students down here in the lower left. These are actually 7th grade students learning from 8th grade students how to do that process. And it's a great skill to learn. Next one. This is, I mentioned field trips, and so we would do things like, this is Ava Martin in the upper right, and she's touching a starfish. And we were at the Seattle Aquarium, and so we did an enrichment field trip down there and went to a few different sites. And I just saw Ava the other day. Ava Martin is attending Western Washington University, which is in Bellingham, just north of us. And she's doing great. And she was an AVID kid and went all the way through high school and stuck with the program and did really well. I think the one on the upper left is we went to the EMP, I think they call it the Pop Culture Museum now. We got to go visit there. This lower left, I think that's Seattle Pacific University. And so if you stick with that, if there's a program that works for you, and you apply, and you're admitted and all that, you might see 8 to 10 colleges by the time you graduate high school throughout Washington. You tour those campuses. You get to meet the admissions counselor. You get to hear from students that are going there. You get to see college students in their native habitat. And then you can ask them questions and say, what's it like to go here? And by the time you graduate high school, you apply, you'll be really familiar with what colleges look like and have a sense where you want to go. Okay, before we talk about this is actually our last slide, but I want to hear from some students, from the AVID kids, and you can, they'll give you the honest truth. Come on over here, guys. Test 1, 2. Oh, there we go. So I'll ask these guys a question, and then they can tell you their their perspective from an 8th grade student. And we were just talking about this before you came in, they remember sitting as 6th graders, listening to a presentation like this from students that were 8th graders then that are now in 10th grade, they're sophomores in high school. So Sam, what made you, when you were in 6th grade, sitting in one of these seats, say, I think, yeah, I want to go to college, or I want to sign up for a program like this one?
I wanted to be successful and be prepared for the future.
Nice. Sydney, same question.
I think because I've always really wanted to go to college, so when I saw it, I was like, yes, college.
That was it. You hear the word college, and you're like, I'm signing up.
Yeah.
Excellent. Zavala.
I guess I just signed up because I wanted to be successful also and learn more about how to apply for colleges.
That's a big part of it, especially as you get into high school. There'll be applying for colleges is a whole process in and of itself. It's kind of like a part-time job when you're a junior and a senior, and so that's a big part of the support later on. Sam, what has been? We'll start with the negative and go to the positive. What's been the hardest part about the AVID program for you?
Probably organization, but good thing the program helps you with that, so I became more used to organizing my binder and my planner and writing down dates and stuff.
Hey, raise your hand if you're one of those kids that has no judgment here. If you've got some papers shoved in the bottom of your backpack and you don't even know how long they've been there. Oh yeah, I was one of those. Yeah. Okay. Sydney?
I'd like to say homework, but we don't get a lot of homework, so that was probably the only thing.
Okay. Yeah, so not a ton of AVID specific homework, but some accountability for other homework in other classes, sure.
I guess the hardest part is sometimes you don't really know what to put on the TRF sometimes.
Yeah, so what she's talking about is a TRF is a tutorial request form, so that higher level question, sometimes it's hard to generate that question. Like, what am I going to ask this week that I need help with or I want to learn more about? Okay. What's been the best part or the most helpful part, I guess, of the program? That could be maybe the same thing too.
Having connections with friends and stuff and being supported by your fellow classmates and just being around them makes you happier.
Probably TRFs or just all the lessons because we learn other things like how much a house costs or if you're going to rent it and other stuff like that.
I guess the most positive part would be also reading about articles and finding out more about colleges and high school and beyond.
Yeah, so we do some AVID weekly articles, which some of you probably, who's read an AVID weekly article at some point? Anybody? You guys, maybe you've seen them. That's probably a 7th and 8th grade thing actually. But we have access to articles that usually are about current events or really interesting things that maybe you wouldn't think about otherwise. What advice do you have, last question, for 6th graders, and this could be AVID related or not, it could be how to navigate middle school. As seasoned, successful 8th grade students, and these 3 are really successful students doing really well, what advice do you have for 6th graders? You're at the tail end of your middle school career if they want to be successful.
It's going to get hard, very hard, but you just kind of have to notice yourself at that position and you know that you can persevere and push through that tough time and you'll go on to do great things.
I'd say always do your homework, but also if you're confused about something, just try and ask someone about it.
I guess listen to the teacher and the directions so you don't get confused about stuff.
Look at that. Those are great responses. In just a minute, when these guys are, they're going to pass out some applications for those who are interested that can take those with them. If you have other specific questions that you want to ask them, like about AVID or about what's it like to be an amazing, successful 8th grade student with lots of talents and skills, you can ask them that, and we'll do that. But the last slide says, want to join AVID, and Mr. Flynn's going to have some specific directions for you for those who are interested, or you're kind of thinking about it and you want to go continue to think about it, kind of what there's some timeline things you need to be aware of. But before he does that, let's give a big hand to our 8th graders.
Great job, guys. Thank you. Okay, so as you've been listening, asking yourself some questions, here's what it comes down to. Where are you with your individual determination? If you are that student that's around the B's and C's, you want to do better, you're just not sure how, you know that with a little nudging and a lot of support, you can do better. And I would really strongly encourage you to consider AVID. AVID is an elective class, so looking at next year's 7th graders, AVID would take the spot of either your elective or your PE class on your schedule. And I work with AVID students in creating and customizing your schedule to make sure you get the classes that are set up for you that you want. Okay, so the application will be handed out to everyone today. The first page is the actual application. It's pretty easy to complete. We are asking for you to turn those in to your first period teacher on Tuesday morning. Okay, so you don't have a lot of time, which means we're not giving you a lot of time to lose these applications either. Okay, so certainly think about it today, think about it over the weekend, talk to friends, family, make your decision, fill out the application, turn it in to your first period teacher on Tuesday. The second page to the application is a teacher recommendation form. You're going to choose one of your current 6th grade teachers and hand them that teacher recommendation form. They're going to answer some questions on basically their observations of you this year as a 6th grader, looking at the potential. And that information will be really helpful for Mr. Crane and I to decide the next step for the applicants, which will be short interviews, getting to know you a little more as students and as people. Okay, so front page, application, when is that due? Tuesday. Who are you giving it to? First period teacher. All right, teacher recommendation form. When you approach the teacher, be respectful and practice that skill of asking someone to do something for you. So it's not, hey Dunham, I need this done. How about, excuse me, Mr. Dunham, can you please fill out this teacher recommendation for me? I'm really interested in it. Okay, practice that skill. Start now. I saw a few hands while I was talking about that. All right. Yeah. Great question. So can you join AVID at any other time other than going into 7th grade? Yes. Each year there's a possibility. However, there's only one class of AVID here at the middle school and at the high school. So if that class is full, but you're interested, you may end up having to be put on a waiting list, which means potential of not getting into the class if you want. But great question. Any others? Okay, awesome. Yep.
Hey, one more thing. Just if you're not sure about applying, it's like we have as many as 130 kids apply. And like Mr. Flynn said, it's only 28, 29 kids in the class, and so it's okay if you're not sure. You can always apply and see what happens. But just don't be afraid to take that first step if that's something you're considering. This sounds like, oh, that might be a good program for me. These 3 students are going to pass out an orange application, like Mr. Flynn said. This is Sam, Isabella, left to right, and Sydney. So if you have a question like, hey Sydney, or hey Isabella, hey Sam, you can ask them a specific question about AVID as well. They're pretty good about answering. They've been around the block for that too. Okay, they're going to pass those out, and Mr. Harrington will dismiss you once everybody has an application. Thanks guys, nice job.